Hi all, good afternoon. Just like to welcome you all to our MGAA Next Gen Insight series. So just a little bit of introductions for myself. My name's Sophie Ward. I'm Technical Claims Manager at Penn Underwriting and also a member of the MGAA Next Gen Committee. And I'd like to welcome you to our next Insight series session on the subject of the Code of Conduct for the use of AI in claims, which is being delivered by Eddie Longworth today. Just a bit of background as regarding our Insight series. It is a series aimed at a deep dive into different key market trends and are designed to increase awareness and knowledge and allow individuals to gain more of a deeper understanding on relevant topics. So just before we get going on today's subject, just a few housekeeping points. Can we all just make sure our cameras and microphones are turned off? We are looking to do a Q&A towards the end of the session, so if you'd like to ask a question, just feel free to use the chat button at the bottom. Time allowing, those questions will be asked and answered at the end. They were chatting before, just put a question in as and when you feel like it. Don't wait until the end. If you have a question at a certain point, just pop that in there and we'll get to those towards the end of the session. And any questions that we don't have time to get to, we will get them answered for you after the event. And this presentation is also accredited for the quality of its content by the CII, and CPD hours can be logged if relevant. So yeah, if you do have ongoing professional development programs within your individual companies, you can get those CPD hours logged for this event. This briefing is also being recorded, and a link to the recording will be issued post-event together with the slides and our feedback survey. So if anyone isn't able to make it, they are able to access the session after the event. So as I said before, today's session is on the subject of the Code of Conduct for the use of AI. So let me introduce you to our presenter, Eddie Longworth from JEL Consulting. Over to you, Eddie.
Hi, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here. I've had connections with the MGA in the past, and so it came as a very pleasant and welcome surprise to be invited to come along to this session, and also particularly pleased that it's a next gen committee as well. I think it's important that we don't just look to what we're doing today, but also we're looking very much to what we should be doing tomorrow. So congratulations to the Next Gen Committee for actually coming up with this. So there are some learning objectives today, and hopefully this is what you'll feel at the end of the meeting. We will review at the end of the meeting whether we've actually got this message or got these messages across. We're going to have a look at the potential of AI in claims, supply chain, and anything sort of around that area. But having said that, if you're not a claims person, then that's okay. A lot of what I have to say is applicable outside of the claims arena, some of the general principles that I'm talking about. So the detail will be on claims, but the general principles of AI will spread across several different aspects of the insurance industry. And we're going to look at some of the positives, but actually also some of the negatives around AI and, what's really going on behind the scenes. There's quite a bit of hype in the marketplace at the moment. And apparently everybody's got AI and it's all working and things are absolutely wonderful. That's not quite true. So we'll have a look at some of the upsides, of which there are huge numbers, but also some of the downsides as well of AI. And then we've got this thing called the Code of Conduct for the development, implementation and use of artificial intelligence in claims. That it was an initiative launched by me and quite a number of other people in the marketplace. We'll be looking at that towards the end of the presentation so that you can see, how it all comes together. And whether indeed the Code of Conduct is suitable for you and your business. We've got a lot of organizations and brokers and insurers and tech companies all signed up to the code. So at the end of the session, you may feel it's appropriate for you to have another look at. So those are the learning objectives, and I hope we're going to get there during the next 55 minutes or so. I see, I saw some of the people who've been registered, and I see that I know some of them, or some of them maybe know me from some of the work I've been doing in claims for the last few years. Um, but I think it's only fair that you have a vague view of who this guy Eddie Longworth is, and how come I come to be sat here in front of you today. So I'll just put this on the screen here, and as I'm talking, I'm sure you'll be reading it. Well, I hope you'll be reading it in terms of understanding my background, which is a 27-year background in working in the claims and supply chain development arenas on 3 different continents, from Saudi Arabia to Glasgow, and all places south of that. And you can see from the project samples there that there's a pretty wide range of development work that I've been involved in. And interestingly, and this is sort of deliberate, really, you won't see, I don't think you'll see, the words AI or artificial intelligence or any such thing on the screen here, despite the fact that I seem to have acquired a bit of a reputation for that particular arena. And the reason it's not on there is because I know absolutely bugger all about artificial intelligence. My wife would claim I don't even have any normal intelligence, let alone artificial intelligence. And the reason for that is because I'm not that interested in the mechanics of AI. What I'm interested in is the output. So what we can do with it, not what it is. The analogy I would draw is that I'm guessing, I won't ask you to put your hand up, but I'm guessing that most of the attendees today can drive a car and have a car. Some people in London may not have a car, but you quite often drive a car. I'll put my hand up. I've got 2 cars, and I drive 50,000 miles a year, roughly. And I have no idea how the engine works. I'm not even sure where the engine is. And the computer on my in my car tells me when I have to take it for a service, and I take it for a service, and they do things, and they charge me loads of money, and then I drive it for another 10,000 miles or so. So if we liken the car engine to artificial intelligence and the driver to me, you, your claims director, your supply chain director, whoever it happens to be, the projects that we're working on that include AI, what we're interested in is the output. We're not interested that much in the input. But everything I receive at the moment, all these emails that appear in my inbox and people I've never heard of, usually have the word AI or the initials AI stuck somewhere in them. And that's to attract my attention, I guess. And therein lies part of the downside of AI. It's become a byword for technical and technological development in the claims and supply chain space, and in underwriting, and in pricing, and in distribution, and in all these other areas. It's become this sort of well, if you haven't got it, or if you're not thinking about it, or you're not talking about it, then you're not really in the game. I'm not absolutely convinced of that at the moment. I think there is a lot more hype than there is actuality. But nevertheless, it's clearly the area of major development over the next 5 to 10 years. So, we need to pay attention. But like I say, I drive a car. I don't pay any attention to the engine. And of all the people who are attending this meeting today, my guess is one of them might be interested in the mechanics of a car. And it's pretty much the same with artificial intelligence. Perhaps 1 or 2 of you are interested in the mechanics of artificial intelligence, What I'm going to be talking about is the outputs and how we can maybe use it to improve what we're doing today. But we do need a few sort of definitions, really. We need to understand a little bit about the language. So I've got a slide here, which I'm not convinced that claims people do actually need to know this, but it's simply that, as I say, every email I get, most presentations that I see, have some element of this type of language within it. Now, like I say, I don't really care. This is the engine that is driving the car. But nevertheless, it's good to look intelligent when vendors are making presentations to you or to your clients. And given that one of my jobs for some of my clients is to go out and find the right technology for them, it's helpful to have a little bit of knowledge of the language that's being used. But in truth, I suspect that most of the people hearing are really like me, that this is a little bit beyond us. And that's because we're not intelligent. Of course we are, otherwise we wouldn't be in the jobs that we've got. But it's because we've got other things to think about. And we've got a day job. You know, we've got developmental work in operations that we have to run. We have to think about consumer duty. We have to think about, you know, the latest FCA report. Or indeed, interestingly, I read a report yesterday, I don't think you saw it, from Which, the consumer organisation, which is absolutely scathing about the claims handling function, the claims handling capabilities and activities of insurers collectively. And that, on a day-to-day basis, has more worry for my clients than this type of stuff has. Except, of course, that if AI has the opportunity to solve some of the problems that Which and other people, consultants like me, identify, then, you know, maybe it's something that we need to be looking at. And I say maybe because AI is a facilitator, but that's all it is. It's like MS Word. It's like a word processor in the sense that we use it. We don't necessarily understand it, which is one of the problems. You know, we have to worry about the outcomes, but nevertheless, what we're interested in, as I say, is how do we type the document? How do we get the car to run? Sorry, how do we drive the car that's already running, and so on. So this level of knowledge is something that I'm actually not convinced that claims and supply chain people even need to know, but because every vendor is using this language, it's worth knowing. Generative AI, I'm sure you've all had a go at ChatGPT. Why don't they give it a proper name, like ChatGPT? I'm sure we've all had a go. We've entered a few prompts into ChatGPT and ended up with answers that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, but it's quite amusing. Well, of course, you know, if we're using AI properly, we have to go to several levels beyond that. And slowly but surely, we are getting there. I'll just go to the next slide, which sort of gives you a picture of where we are in the artificial intelligence journey, for want of a better word. And this first level, commonly known as assisted intelligence, is where we look at, and it's often known as robotics, or, you know, RPA or something like that as well. So it's taking what we do today and just enables us to do it better, quicker, faster, cheaper. Whatever AI can help us to do. And I think that's the first, and that's the first upside. That's great, but it's also the first downside. Because the thing I would say is that if AI helps you to do the wrong thing, even more quickly than you were doing before, then you got the wrong thing doing wronger, even more negatively in terms of outcomes. And if you think that's a bonkers way of looking at it, I mean, just think of the examples. Sorry, just think of the examples that you have in your own business. I'm sure you've looked at what you do, be it claims or anything else. And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's not right. It's not great. It's not perfect. And then someone comes along with an AI solution and they look at the same thing and they say, well, we could automate that. We could make it, really good. You wouldn't have to do that double keying and all the rest of it. We could read the document, unstructured document. We could read the words. We can put it all in the right place. But is it the right place? Is it what you really need to be doing? And I see a lot of the time solutions in search of a problem instead of us defining the problem and then looking for the solution, be it assisted intelligence or anything else, but for that matter. So, I mean, I'm told that the first sort of deployments of artificial intelligence were in the 1950s. I don't know if that was the case. I wasn't a consultant there, but I think it's fair to say that the level of artificial intelligence being used decades ago was this level of assisted intelligence. So is it, is it really thinking or is it just doing? I think it's the latter, really. It's just doing stuff that we're telling it to do. So for goodness sake, we need to tell it to do the right thing. And that is mission critical to me. I mean, the work I do as a consultant quite often is about, working with organizations and suggesting that they do things differently to the way they're doing it today, because it would be, a better outcome for the company and their customers. And I may well deploy assisted intelligence to help me do that. But nobody comes along to me and says, I've got this assisted intelligence system. Where do you want to deploy it? It's the other way around. You have to do the homework first. And it's not easy to do. Starting with a blank sheet of paper on any element of the work that we do as an industry is a pretty big ask. And I have to say a lot of businesses get it wrong. So assisted intelligence, you'll be familiar with it. You're deploying it. You're doing robotics. You're doing automation. You're doing that type of thing already. There's a lot of it about. But if you think about some of the outcomes of the claims and supply chain activities, particularly if you read, for example, as I just said, the Which report, then clearly assisted intelligence is not really helping in the way that maybe it could do. So it's one of those things where, let's walk before we run. And it's our job as claims people, supply chain people, underwriters, whoever you are, whatever situation you're in, it's our job to determine what is the right thing to do. And then we'll go and find the solution. And if that includes assisted intelligence, that's great. But be aware that doing the wrong thing even quicker simply ends up with, a wronger version of what you started. But assisted intelligence has been around, forever, really. And then we move to the next level of artificial intelligence, which is this thing called augmented intelligence. And as it says there, that is about enabling us to do things that we otherwise couldn't do. lots of upside. But again, let me even out the equation. Imagine, for example, let's paint a scenario here. In fact, I can give you a very practical example for reasons which are entirely beyond me. My wife was painting our banister the other day, which looked perfectly fine to me. I don't know why she decided to do it, but anyway, she did. And it looked absolutely wonderful when she'd finished. Well, at least that's what I told her. Anyway, sadly, the bit that went wrong is when she'd finished and she stepped back slightly to admire her work. Unfortunately, she kicked the paint can that was full of a dark brown paint, which tumbled down the stairs, which had a cream carpet. And so, as you can imagine, she was devastated. Personally, I thought it was quite funny. And the good news is we are insured for it. And so we're now making a claim. And I think partially because of the emotional impact, being serious for a moment, the emotional impact that had, what my wife wanted to do was talk to someone. And she wanted to explain things. And she wanted to feel sad and sorry and upset. And God bless the people who were claiming for. She was able to do that. But I happen to know, because I've done some work for that insurer, that they could do a whole stack of stuff using our augmented intelligence that would resolve a lot of the issues that my wife has on this claim, would coordinate suppliers, get loss adjusters here at the right time in the right order and all that sort of stuff. But actually, and that's things that by and large can't be done very well today. But actually, that's not what my wife wanted. She may do later on in the process. But right at that time, when she was making a claim, it wasn't about artificial, augmented, or any other type of intelligence. It was about the emotional impact of a claim. Now, that's the personal lines market. Obviously, the commercial market, I say obviously, the commercial market might be different. But, where are you going to deploy augmented intelligence for the building that's burnt down and that is owned by a, relatively small business owner who needs to make a claim? Which to them is a highly complex thing to do, because they've never done it before unless they're fraudsters. So augmented intelligence and indeed assisted intelligence has tremendous upside to give us the opportunity to do stuff that we couldn't do before. In the work that I do, I'm looking to deploy some of this really to coordinate a whole series of activities between suppliers, which at the moment just look like a big black hole. The claim goes into it and eventually it comes out of it, but goodness knows what goes on in the middle. So finding out what's going on in the middle, understanding the processes, keeping the customer on top of things, that's something that my clients, a lot of my clients anyway, can't do right now. So augmented intelligence will help them to do that. But like I say, it's about the outcome. What outcomes are you looking for? Therefore, what type of artificial intelligence should you be deploying? And then finally, autonomous intelligence. Well, that's when the robots take over the world, which I promise you is not imminent. But nevertheless, it is about letting loose the capabilities of artificial intelligence. We haven't got there, despite the scares that there might be in the media, and I hope, in one sense, we never get there, because certainly in the claims and the supply chain arena, there always, to my mind, there always has to be human oversight. Artificial intelligence is about using the word there, augmenting what we do as organizations. It's not about replacing what we do as organizations. But you will find for absolute certain, even if you haven't started to get the presentation just yet, I mean, in a year, 2 years' time, vendors, if you're a claims director, for example, will be coming to you and saying, look, I've got this wonderful piece of kit that acts on its own. It decides what to do. And all you need to do is set the parameters and off we go. Well, life is not as simple as that. Again, let me give you another story. It's a true story. It's not so much about autonomous intelligence, but nevertheless, it sort of illustrates the point I'm making, really. In the United States, probably a couple of years ago now, a health insurance company was being sued by a bunch of lawyers who had brought together 300,000 claimants, which is not a small number, to basically complain about how the health insurance company was handling claims, and in particular how it was denying claims. So you can imagine the scenario where the claims director is presented with this piece of kit, whether it's assisted, augmented, but definitely not autonomous intelligence yet. So they're presented with this piece of kit, and the vendor says, well, we can read the claims form, whether it's structured or unstructured information. We can apply that to the policy indemnities, and we can do a match or not, and then we can accept or deny the claim. And in the case of these 300,000 people, they'd all had their claim denied. And you can imagine the claims director sat there thinking, well, this is great. I can get a piece of machinery to do this for me. And in 2 months, the piece of machinery, whatever it was, using AI, supposedly, I never saw it, but using AI, managed to decline 300,000 claims with an average scrutiny time of 1.2 seconds per claim. And you can just see the claims director looking at their bonus and thinking, yippity-dee-dah, life is wonderful. But sadly, that's not what the 300,000 people thought, not just because their claim had been denied, but because of the way in which it had been denied, with little or no human oversight, no opportunity to appeal. And it was felt to be outside the spirit of what the organisation was of what the insurer had promised, even if it was in the sort of the rules, as it were. So huge upside. I mean, gosh, examining that. Well, that's 300,000 denials. I don't know how many claims they actually looked at, to get to that point. So huge upside, but some downside as well.
Eddie, sorry to interrupt this. Also, there's just a question for me, and just from a claims perspective, sorry, that someone's just dropped in the group, just sort of my opinion on augmented or autonomous intelligence and which one, I think is better when it comes to claims. I think augmented intelligence is there to help us make decisions or catch things that we may not necessarily see ourselves. It's added on, whereas the autonomous intelligence is where I think, things you're dependent on the equipment, the system, and ensuring that is correct. So, how do we audit that? How do you ensure that the computer's right and we're wrong? That's meant to be more intelligent. And I know when it comes to the claims journey, augmented can help that customer journey. It can improve it, it can enhance it, it can help us, catch things like fraud. And I think your next slide is going all around that. So it's just good to sort of tie in those points into more like the customer journey. And obviously with our next gen community, AI is just going to develop over time in terms of, the challenges and positives, you see for us that are coming through that are going to have to utilize this more in our day to day.
Yeah, thanks. So I mean, in 5 years' time, and it will be that short, I think, we will look back on today's period and think, well, what the hell were we worried about? I think it will become second nature, provided we focus on the outcomes that we're looking for and not the inputs that artificial intelligence can supply. Sorry, I've got dogs going about that. That's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from. So let me move on to the next slide if I can, because what I want to talk about now is the claims department, and I'm not going to go into any technical details about claims. You don't need to worry about that, uh, because I don't. That's not what I do for a living. But what I want to paint for you is a picture, a strategic picture, if you like, of how a typical claims department will work. And they will have three broad, excuse me, they will have three broad sort of areas of activity. We will have operational expenses. What do we do? What does it cost? How do we employ people and deploy AI, for example, to manage the operational costs of the business? We've got buildings, we've got people, we've got communication centres, we've got all sorts of stuff going on, and all sorts of, subdivisions and departments that are around operational expenses. And the good claims director is always looking to keep those under control. But looking here, it's a little bit, I mean, it depends on the line of business, of course, and all sorts of things like that. But it's a little bit like the old 80-20 rule, that if you're spending 20% of your costs on operations, you're probably spending in the region of 80% of your costs on indemnity, actually fulfilling the claim. You only have to look at average claims costs today and the amount that the ABI and other organisations say we pay out on an annual basis, billions and billions and billions of pounds. And that's not in operational expenses, that's in indemnity costs. I saw in the, I think it was in the motor sector, a couple of weeks ago, the ABI reckoned that in one single quarter, the industry have paid out more than £3 billion, which is just an extraordinary figure. And that's in indemnity costs. So that's where the money lies. That's where the money is going. And if artificial intelligence is to help us, then actually its focus ideally should be on the world of indemnity. But then we have a third element, which is the customer experience, because in all this operational expenses, indemnity costs stuff, we have customers, be they commercial, be they small business, be they personal lines, but whatever it happens to be, at the back of it there is a customer who has purchased one or more policies, looking for that peace of mind that we give. And it's a constantly moving feast. This is my sort of pidgin description of what is happening on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis in most claims departments, which is that it's a constantly shifting focus of priorities. Do not believe a claims department that says, customers are at the centre of everything that we do. Well, they may be at the centre until the finance director comes along and says you're spending too much money and our ratios are not working, so I need you to sort it out. And suddenly the customer takes a back seat, or customer priorities take a back seat. And that's not a criticism. It's just a way of life for customers, for client and supply chain departments. So there's a constantly shifting focus of priorities in the claims department. And the big spend, as I say, is on indemnity costs. And I include fraud in that. It's a illegitimate indemnity cost, but nevertheless, it can be a significant part of the spend. But interestingly, the current focus of AI is on getting a hold of operational expenses. So, for example, to go back to the US example that I gave, that was about making decisions on liability, which is an operational piece. And the AI had helped them to do that. No, I've no issues with that. I mean, that's a good use of AI. But what I'm saying is that the next level of AI development over the next 5 to 10 years is, well, how can we use AI to get a hold of the indemnity costs? Because that's where the big money is being spent. And yes, fraud is part of that, of course it is. But when we're paying out money, most of it is, not most of it, 99% of it, depending on the line of business, is for legitimate purposes. So we're paying out billions of pounds on indemnity for real reasons. It's not for fraud. So AI, if it's to have a focus over the next 5 years, to my mind, it's about saying, okay, how do we get better control of indemnity costs? And some of the stuff that's being done in commercial buildings, for example, to maybe some parametric insurance stuff around, once a flood reaches a certain level, there's an automatic payout. AI can help you to determine what level that should be, what's going on, and so on. And you don't need a mega sophisticated system to be doing that, but you're going to be saving a lot more money potentially on indemnity spend than you are on operational costs. So I'm not saying AI is focusing in the wrong area at the moment. What I'm saying is that as we unroll AI, if it makes a shift towards managing indemnity costs, then it will have a even more positive impact on us. And then we know that the customer experience is built on these factors here. And again, how is AI going to help us to do that? I mean, taking a liability decision in 1.2 seconds may not have been the brightest of things to do. But nevertheless, that's the sort of area where AI can have a big impact in the immediate, like now, today. But again, it can introduce consistency, in particular, consistency of decision making. That's what customers often say. They say, we want to know but the decision that you're making, why you're making the decision that you're making, is it fair? Is it value for money? And I think that's where customer experience and AI can come together and do a great job. So that's my magic triangle of claims management, but I also have a magic circle as well, because the three elements that I'm talking about, operation expenses, indemnity costs, customer experience, they don't exist in a vacuum. And I think there are three other elements that AI can help us with to provide the system-wide consistency. And those three elements to me are consumer duty, which is, similar to customer experience, but there's a regulatory aspect to it. Clearly, AI will not replace everybody. There's a bunch of people who are going to be working with AI. And nowadays, today, I'm not convinced that they know how to do that. Now, they don't have to be engineers. They don't have to lift the bonnet of the car. But they have to know what AI is doing and why and how it's doing it. Because what we're trying to avoid is the law of unintended consequences. And again, I return to the US story. The claims director there wasn't trying to rip people off. He wasn't trying to deny claims that shouldn't be denied. What he was trying to do is speed the whole thing up, thinking that that's what customers would want. But the law of unintended consequences dipped in and said, no, we don't trust the decision that you're making. So that bond of trust was lost. Some things that I do see in the marketplace are what I call isolated or point-to-point AI solutions. And it does worry me slightly that people are grabbing the nearest thing that works for them, and it's not necessarily being coordinated with everything else that's going on, and not just in claims and supply. And a good example of this would be the reading of unstructured documents and information. That's great. That's fantastic innovation. I'm all in favour of that. But once the information is moved into the right place, then what are the consequences of that? What are we trying to do with all this? So AI doesn't sit on its own. It's not a piece of kit that you can just park on a computer and say, there you go, get on. It actually has to fit with everything else that we're doing as well. And then finally, AI is definitely a threat to future skills needs. And I was interviewed by Insurance Times the other day, and hopefully I made this point, which is that, and I'm talking about the claims operation now. A lot of people enter claims through the first notification of loss route. They come in, they do a good job in ethanol, and then they're spread out into the rest of the organisation. Everyone comes through that. There's highly educated engineers, loss adjusters, all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people, particularly school leavers and younger people, come into the first notification, and then they spread their wings, which is great, except that the impact of AI on the first notification of loss will be significant in terms of reducing the numbers that are needed. And it will be a different type of need as well. One insurer that I did some work for thinks they can reduce their first notification of loss numbers by about 70% by using artificial intelligence, chatbots, you name it, they're doing it. Which, okay, it achieves a reduction in operational expenses, which is, one of the levels over here. Maybe it helps them with the consumer duty activities and so on. But what about the people? And if they're reducing their requirement for numbers by 70% or so, then who's coming into the organisation for the generations of the future, for the claims and supply chain people for the future? Because if there's nowhere for them to start, or there's a small opportunity for start, then they'll go somewhere else and get a job somewhere else. So AI is great, but one of the objectives that every claims director I've ever met is to reduce the headcount, and in doing so, we will need a different type of person, which is the good news, and no problem with that. But actually, we will need less people. So I just wonder where the next generation of people are going to come from.
Eddie, just a quick one from me, Sophie. So obviously, session's all about, claim of, the code of conduct. I know you're going to come on to, I think it's the next slide regarding that. So I think, if we move on to the next slide, it would just be good to know sort of how the code influences the use of AI in claims, how can we, so it would just be good if you could just shed a bit of light on the code and then how it influence it. Perfect.
Okay. And I'm going to miss the next. So this session is actually entitled around the AI code of conduct in claims. So what is it? Well, about 12 months ago, I had a bright idea that because of all this stuff that was going on in AI, claims, supply chain, underwriting, whatever, but specifically claims for me, I had a worry that it was uncontrolled implementation of AI, that people were perhaps looking for shorter term gains and not thinking too much about the ethics and the advisability of implementing it. So I launched a little campaign on, amongst my contacts and suggested that maybe a code of conduct might be a stake in the ground for individuals and companies to follow. And I expected, 3 or 4 of my mates to say, yeah, okay, we'll give you a hand, particularly as I wasn't going to pay them. So I made a bit of an appeal, and 127 people from all walks of life, not just claims, not just supply chain, but technology, obviously insurers, brokers were involved, trade associations were involved, even the ABI sent someone along and so on. And these 127 people cooperated over a period of 6 months to design a code which is for claims, but it can be used anywhere. And essentially, what we're trying to do with this code is to ensure that when AI is being implemented, then there are key elements within it, whatever those key elements are needed. And we've identified some of them here. Now, it's not every thing. The code of conduct is 1 page long. It's literally one side of A4. But what it does is it gives you reference points. It says that if you're doing AI work, and most of us on this call will be doing AI work, then you need not a regulatory framework, because this is definitely not regulatory. It's self-authorization, for want of a better word. But what you need is something to hold up and say, well, those are the principles that we work to. And these are the principles: safety, security, and robustness, contestability, and redressability. And you can read that faster than I can say it. And we've been really fortunate. All sorts of organisations and individuals have signed up to this. We've had insurers, tech bodies, trade associations, lawyers. The law profession seems particularly interested in this, brokers. So what these people are saying in an entirely voluntary way is, well, we're going to be sensible about AI. We're going to have a stake in the ground. We can call it a code of conduct, but you can call it anything you feel like. And we're going to abide those principles when we're using AI or when we're implementing AI, both now and in the future. So the code of conduct is out there. It has been signed by hundreds of organisations or people. We're delighted with the way it's gone. It's gone, far further than we expected. I made a presentation to a group of people in Saudi Arabia on this the other day. So they're now looking at it to see if it suits their situation. So do please have a look at it. And what you will see is that it reflects what I've been saying for the last 43 minutes. It reflects all the upside of AI, which is absolutely, it's going to transform the way we work and who we work with and how we do it. But it also suggests that there is a potential downside and you need a stake in the ground to guide you along the way. So that is the Code of Conduct and Claims. It's available, it's freely available. You get it on the website. We'll send details out later on. And you'll see that it absolutely fits with everything that I've been saying. So if you've got half an ounce of agreement with what I've been saying, then the next stage is to have a look at the Code of Conduct and see if it suits you. Doesn't suit everybody, but maybe it suits you. And it's self-regulatory. I promise you, it is not a 50-page booklet. In fact, the Association of British Insurers, God bless them, issued a guidance on introducing AI into your organisation. That was 80 pages long, and I stopped reading at page 2 or 3, despite the fact it's a really good document. The Code of Conduct is 1 page long, and it gives you all the guidance that you need, in my humble opinion. So what I hope is that you've understood from this, as we started out, to some of the potential of AI in claims, supply chain, and even other areas. I want to have come across to you that I'm a great supporter, exponent, and implementer of AI in my clients. I don't do it for me, but in my clients. So, in 5 years' time, we won't be having this debate. It'll be like the engine in the car, and we won't even know it's there. But nevertheless, in the meantime, hopefully, a code of conduct for the development of the AI work that you're doing, the development and implementation, would be of some help to you. So I hope that's been a learning point for you. So I'm going to pause there because you've had absolutely enough of my voice over the last 45 minutes or so. And I see there are some questions in the chat box. Sophie, are you going to sort of expound on those for me?
Yes, I think we've answered a couple of those, but just a couple here, Eddie. So more around the code. So I think, people on this call probably understand, as an industry, I think, we've never been good at sharing data. And it'd just be good to know how the code of conduct can help with sharing. So, sharing your data, sharing your outputs, sharing the positives, of implementing the code of conduct into your claim strategy and further beyond there. How can you see the data that you've collected from the code, sharing that, helping with things like fraud prevention, just going forward? It's been interesting to know.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. I mean, the code of conduct doesn't tell you how to implement AI. The code tells you the details, the nitty-gritty details. What it does is to give you a guidance as to what you need to be thinking about, the ethics and the principles behind AI. And what we started is a series of sort of little mini communications groups. They're not working groups, but people who are interested in a particular subject like fraud or whatever, and all of whom are signatories to the code of conduct. And those people are starting to share best practices where they're able and where they're willing to. Obviously, they want to maintain competitive advantage, so there are some issues there. But again, what the code of conduct says is that to every signatory, individual or company, it says there are certain principles that you need to follow. So if you're implementing a counter fraud strategy using AI, you should follow these general principles, and you can therefore discuss with your peers just how you're doing that and what type of best practices you're implementing. Fraud is the obvious one for AI at the moment, but there's a whole host of operational stuff, indemnity stuff that AI is getting involved in. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We're trying to get these communication groups off the ground, but you have to be a signatory to the code of conduct to get it going.
Perfect, thank you. There's another question here. Which universal solution do you think all industries could benefit from?
Universal solution, I'm not quite sure what you mean by universal solution.
So I think it means, is there an overriding solution that you think, we talk about, some of the problems. Do you think there's a universal solution that, different industries can use from, whereas it's yours when it comes to AI?
Yeah. I think the answer is no, because there isn't one solution for everything. But I think what I can do is say that the area that we still fall down on, and which AI can possibly have the most help in, is the customer experience, which I know from my own example that I'm going through now is not great. And the use of AI to coordinate activities, to communicate activities, and to manage the claim or help to manage the claim as we go through will be a great benefit to customers and the customer experience. So I don't think there is one universal solution, but if I were to look at one area that requires universal treatment, then I would say it's the customer experience. I mean, let's remember that in a lot of lines of business, the claims ratio is actually quite low. It's only a minority of policyholders who are making a claim. But paradoxically, they're the ones who really, really, really matter, because they're the ones that the Which report writes about. It never writes about all the good stuff we do. It always writes about the mistakes that we can make. So I think if I were to, if I had a magic wand, I would say it was around the customer experience.
Perfect, thank you. Probably time for one more, so we'll have to keep it short and sweet, Eddie. But just what would you say are the 3 problem statements to apply in AI in claims from short, medium, long terms? Maybe what are the 3 problem areas that you see when applying AI in claims?
Yeah, I understand what you mean by problem statements, and I encourage my clients to do that. I think I've spoken of one, which is the customer experience piece, and just how we could use AI there. The second area, and it goes back to what I was saying before, is if AI is to replace elements of what we do, as a claims and supply chain piece, it's to replace people. How can AI help us with that new generation of people and the skills and knowledge that they will need? A, to use the AI, and B, to handle claims in a different, more concentrated, more intense and more knowledgeable way. So I think AI can be a facilitator of learning as well as, replacing some of our operational expenses. So I think customer experience, a facilitator of learning stroke people. And then I think finally, the good thing about the whole AI movement is that it drives us towards thinking about innovation. It drives us to start thinking differently about what we can do. We're trying to get up the sort of, the step ladder of automated artificial intelligence that I was talking about. So what I am seeing is that AI is a facilitator of new thinking, which might seem like a bit left field. But from where I sit as a consultant, what I'm interested in is doing things differently, not speeding up what we do now. So I think AI has great potential for that, but actually we don't really know what its potential is. So I think, the world of innovation is one that AI could help with. So customers, learning and innovation.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I think we are 2 minutes till we're finished. I think we'll wrap the questions up there. I think I managed to get all of those on there. If not, I'll send you an email, Eddie. So just want to say thank you for that. It's really great to hear, the great initiative that you put in place on the code. So just thank you for that today. Thank you to everyone on the call for joining us. There are some key contacts on the screen. So if anyone does have any questions for Eddie regarding the code, please feel free to drop an email. Regarding the next gen, so we said earlier, it's our Insight series, so it'd be great for you guys just to follow our LinkedIn page and keep your eyes peeled for our next session. And it'd be great to hear from our next generation group in terms of if you want a certain topic, it'd be great for you to DM us and we can look into sort of hosting a session on relevant topics that you feel are necessary or will be beneficial. So we have popped our email address on screen and there is a QR code there that will take you to our LinkedIn page. So yeah, just bob us a message if you do need anything. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for Eddie for hosting. And yeah, I hope you all have a great afternoon.